Hello world, Lindsay here, liaison to the senior partners of Blackhorn and Lynx. Let's play CyberHyve.
I can tell you what I know of my day and what my grandparents said of their day. It's in there. Now, I don't know what you would want me to talk about.
Well, whatever it is.
In there, but this town is smaller and less activity in this town today than it was when I was a boy. Sheep, cows, well, stock just rode this town. And we had 2 or 3 doctors here, medical doctors. We had a dentist here, and we had a drugstore here.
You were born and raised in this
Born and raised here.
town? How old are you now? Don't mind my asking.
I don't mind that at all because it doesn't help at all. I'm in my 68th year, coming up. Soon will be 68th year. Born 1910. In a little shack background over here. But luckily, my great-grandfather, he ran a grocery store here. Started from ice house. The ice wasn't enough, so he added to it, strangely enough, sherbets. Shave sherbets off that ice, and make until he got a little capital to go into a little grocery business. With the aid of my uncle, B.I. Shipman, the one recently passed in '75. And that store went on, and he was so free-hearted, he let them break him. Creditors broke him. So some of the farmers, money men, felt sorry for him, and they kind of aided him a little in some money. He went back into business. And the next thing that happened was that some of his help broke him. Which was our kinfolk, you understand?
They were stealing from him, were they?
Oh, yes, because he wasn't too much of, keeping books. He wasn't too much onto that for keeping books, but he could hold the money, and he would turn money loose to anyone that need. He was a very humanitarian man. And the last people that went back into that to help him was Dr. Polk and Mr. Tiller, the banker and a doctor. They put him back in business with the aid of my uncle, B.I. Shipman. And he held that out until finally the economy got so bad and kind of shifted him back in there. Well, when it shifted him back, then Mr. Wilbur Gaskin took it over. And he died. Mr. Wilbur Gaskin was his backer, while Mr. Wilbur Gaskin was his boss. He did that just through the kindness of him, because Mr. Wilbur Gaskin's father, Mr. Edwin Gaskin, knew him, and Mr. Wilbur knew him all of his life because he was born and raised here too.
Is that the same Gaskins that have the hardware store up
The
here?
same man that you seen walking around there, little fellow, but kind of chubby there, a fine man, Mr. Wilbur. Those Gaskins seem like kinfolks to us. You take Edwin and all, well, it's just like I say, like kinfolk. We all have gotten along. They knew my grandparents and whatnot. Mr. Wilbur and my uncle came along pretty close together. My uncle was a little older than he, B.I. Shipman, what they call him, Brute. He's a little older than he. But they were just close as brothers. I mean, they look out for one another. Now, we had a gin house. This is out of my date. The beginning of this town, as you see, was an agricultural town and a lumbering town. We had a sawmill down the railroad here called Einstein. We had a large sawmill down on the river. I forget its name. I know more about it than I do Einstein. I remember when it left. And we had 2 railroad main trains going through here. Had the, I was told it was first the B&W. But of my day, it was the Atlantic Coastline and the Osceola Southern Railroad that was going through. I don't know anything about B&W.
Did you ever work for the sawmill or work lumbering or on the railroad?
No, I was too large for that. I was too large for that, and we had sharecropped around on the little farms. We were the type of people that tried to make out with what we had and didn't try to reach out farther than you can get to. So we live within our means. If we had to go out and depend on animals out there, you know, rabbits, and squirrels, possums, and coons, and just live within our means because we don't believe in being in debt.
Yeah. When you went hunting for those animals, how did you have dogs to run them, or how'd you do that?
Well, the first go-off was I had a rabbit dog, and I'd go up there. I didn't have no money with nothing. I'd go up there to the same gasket store. They had a man there by the name of Hayes. Well, it was a clerk in there. I'd buy 1 shell and go out in the woods, just as big with that 1 shell, but I'll bring the game back. I'll think about that now and wonder what a nerve I had. I didn't think about it doing that thing. 1 shell. Get a rabbit, squirrel, or whatnot, where we could eat. And we'd fish. Some people fish for the sport and hunt for the sport. But at that day and time, we was hunting for the meat. And the first sharecropping that my uncle did, he sharecropped for another colored fellow by the name of Cap Taylor. My grandfather rented it for him. And that's the first introducing me to farming. Of course, the tram bed went through this pasture over here now that you see over here. So the tram bed went way out to the farm. You couldn't tell it was out there now. And as I say, many people were here. Just take down here in the quarters, all those people were there, and quarters down here on the river, all were there. All the farmers across the river. And nothing but mules and horses. A man had him a horse and buggy. He was getting somewhere.
What did they call these quarters down here? Just the quarters, or was it?
That's all, just the quarters. That's all, Einstein quarters. And I can't think of the name of that mill down there that I know more about than I did this one down here. It was so large, I had church down there. See, built them a church, and they colored. And all, no friction. We had no friction.
How? Let's see. You were born and raised here. How old were you when you left?
I was a full-grown man when I left totally, because every little nicking that I was doing, I was trying to get a little something in my head. You know, I took opportunity of all the schooling I could get a hold to, and when I went up north, I left going up north, I was a full-grown man.
How long were you up there?
About 35 years. 35 years.
Yeah. You come back here to retire?
No, I retired from up there. I was retired from there. I would not have retired, but I had an ailment, blood clot. Blood clot, and forced me, they didn't want me to, but As I say, we just crazy. We don't like to intrude on anyone. I could have stayed on the job. They'd have paid me right on, but if you can't give the service, why intrude? That's just the way I am about a thing.
Mm-hmm. Where were you working up there?
I'm working in Wayne County. That's right in Detroit, right downtown. Right on Randolph Street, come by the county building, and Woodward Avenue goes right by the city county building, Congress, right by the bus station, which is between these two buildings.
What kind of work were you doing?
As a supervisor of maintenance work
For one of those buildings? Or
for the whole county. The whole county.
Yeah.
Is to see that each group get to its place and the main needs of supplies and help make up budget for the year, for the fiscal year.
Was that maintaining buildings or the streets? Or?
Maintaining the buildings.
Uh-huh.
And some of it was the yards, Some of it was, I had a crew that would tend to flowers and whatnot around. It was in there. That's what we had. And my uncle, he lost his wife, which was my auntie. So he was here by himself. Me being broke down, at least I could burn some bread. So I decided I'd come home and burn bread for him. So I burned bread for him and did the best I could for him while he lived, at least.
Back when you were doing that hunting and gathering food, were there any plants that you used to gather out in the woods or fields that you'd eat?
Oh, yes. Oh, man, there was plenty of grapes. Plenty grapes and persimmons.
Mm-hmm.
Plenty, and bamboo. It's a bamboo berry. That bamboo berry is a good berry. I haven't seen any since I've been back. And I've been all in these swamps around and about, but I often would think about them, how nice they would taste.
Yeah.
They would
just eat them right off?
Yes, just pull them right off. The boys say no wash or nothing. Bloop, right on.
What color are they?
Bamboo
berries.
That this bamboo. It's a bamboo. It's, I'll say purple.
Right.
It's purple. That's in there. And gophers too. Gopher turtles. You dig holes, back of the white schoolhouse back there. If I couldn't find anything else into the meats, go back there and catch me a gopher that came out of his fur that he has there. Catch him because he eat grass, you understand. And I go to work and catch that joker before he get back.
Yeah.
I have some gopher and grits.
How do you clean a turtle like that?
Well, you take it. Well, there's several ways, but the best way to me is to just flip him on his back and cut those two spurs to connect the belly bone of the belly outside to each side of that shell. You cut that out, and then you right down into the meat, and you can easily cut the meat right out and leave that bowl shell.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever do anything with the shells after they were dried out and cleaned and such? People ever use them for anything?
No, it was so many of them. Now, you take right now, people will grasp those things to put flowers in, paint them and whatnot. But during the time, I often think about that, how much stuff we threw away. They didn't see no value in it because it was too much of it.
Right. I've heard that way long ago, maybe a couple of 100 years ago, they used to use turtle shells for bowls and they'd drink soup out of them. So.
Oh, sure. I mean, that's where they were scarce. But you see, we had plenty of them. We had around here, we had one we called a streaker leg. He stayed in the water. He lived around the water. And the gopher, he stayed up in the dry hill.
Yeah. Did you ever eat those streaker leg turtles?
Oh, yes, he's good, too. Yeah.
How do you fix turtle meat?
Well, I tell you, the way I fix it, it's the best to me. Now, many like soup. I don't like soup. I don't go for soup. I take it, put them fried in deep fat. And that fat be real hot. Season it good and fry it until it becomes hard as a nut. Then take it out of that. Put it in another container and put in just a little grease. And put you about 2 cups of water in there and all, and steep him right down and break him down. And when he break down, he's tender than a chicken. Tastes like one just about it.
Yeah, I've had turtle. It's real good.
Yeah, sure it is. It's good.
Uh, those grapes that you used to gather, did folks around here?
Hey, my boy.
Did folks around here ever use those grapes to make wine or anything like
Oh,
that?
yes, that's mostly what they would, the so-said Christian ones say we get high off of wine and whatnot around their home. It's in there.
And they make it themselves out of those grapes.
That's right.
Howdy.
Hi, what is it?
Yeah.
Huh?
You got a little grape?
No, not now. I don't have any now. I'll have some later on. So go ahead and tell your sister I'll have some later on.
Okay. She ain't home yet.
Yeah.
Been talking to Mr. Shipman about some of the old ways of life around here.
Yeah, I know when his dad was born. I know when his dad was born there. That's one of the Smiths. Anthony told me he's been up working with you.
Yes, Tony had been helping us.
Mm-hmm.
He ran the lawnmower into a pile of trash one day and bent the whatever makes the thing go
Yes,
around. And
he'll do
we
that.
didn't see him for a while, but I think he's got over his being upset about that.
Yes, he'll do that. He'll forget and do that. Yes, and the next thing, see that house right over there, that was my great-grandfather's house.
Did he build it himself, do you know?
I don't know. As long as I can remember, that house was there. This one wasn't here. I know when this one was built. Here. Because we had right here, between this one and the church here, was a lot. We kept the mules and things in. And then, so when we built this, we moved the lot on the back.
Now, is that the kitchen in the back of that house over
That's
there?
right. That was the kitchen. Nothing but the kitchen. You know, back into that day and time, it was luxury to have the kitchen set off from the house with a porch to come between. And also it was a well right there on that porch, you see.
What do you call that kind of house where the kitchen is separate from the rest of the house? Is there
Now
any
that-
name for it?
Yeah, I know they have, but I have never been able, I've heard the name 2 or 3 times, but it slips by me.
Yeah, I've seen a bunch of those houses in this area. They're real interesting, I think. I
And,
wonder why they separated the kitchen from the rest of the house like that.
well, I'll tell you the whole truth. You took, from a health standpoint, you take, you watch individuals that back of that day now, you have to get way back on the other side of my age to realize those with a little learning of health, they all were set out.
Yeah. Did lots of the houses used to have the kitchen separated like that?
That's right. Many of them. The kitchen would separate out because they wanted it clean. You could eat off the floors. There's a many white here in this town. There's a lady here, Miss Weeder Pork. And them, they know my grandmother. They know about her. They could eat off the floor.
Just gonna put this up here where I won't have to hold it. I'm lazy.
Yeah, I am too. Back when I be so much. World War II. It's in there. But anyway, we got along fine in many houses here. See, it was a house right up here. The hole right out there. Big hole right out here. and this was a field. A spur from the old Southern Railroad went right through this field, went right by the corner of that church, and went on around to the old brick warehouse you see around there. All this was my day in time knowing. See, now my grandmother told me that land all in here and whatnot around it, bought it for 25 cents an acre. Just in there, excuse me. So somehow or another they bought. I was lucky enough, I was born in there. They owned it. So that's where I reckon that's what made me stick around. You see, because I would stick around our own.
Were there any plants that people used to gather, or roots that they dig, or anything that they used for medicine or for for doctoring?
Oh yes, you had to, because we didn't have the doctors. We didn't have the doctors. Back in that day, it was, you see, you'll find this of me, I'm plain, I talk it and tell it like it is. The doctors that were around, they didn't care too much about doctoring on the black. They took it was, well, they know you pretty good, one of those things. Just in there. That's why we had so many ill births and so many other different things that was around. But luckily, into my family, they was pretty well tied up to a doctor. And we had a good doctor, too, and he'd come to you night or day if you needed. Mm-hmm. By the name of Dr. Moore. Dr. Moore, he would come to you. So they had, now I wouldn't know these roots if I was to see them, because my people didn't fool with none of that kind of stuff, but I know many did. Say there's black snake root, bear grass, bear grass, and some other old kind of root.
Do you recall what they used those for?
Yes, rheumatism and lumbago, they would call it, and stuff that they have new names now. These things will come in here, I have to change this stuff. That's what I have to work on next. We haven't fixed that. And they would use them for teas, sassafras. Now I know about that, because I taste some of that. My grandmother told me, she said, don't drink that stuff if they don't pick it out right. Said that stuff would cause blindness. So we didn't fool with stuff like that.
Yeah. Was that the bear grass that they used for the rheumatism and lumbago?
Yes.
Bear grass root?
Yes.
How about the black snake root?
The black snake root too. Mm-hmm. And they would take, in a sour apple they called it, a sour apple, they would take it for a laxative. And what else that they would do? They'd make their own salve.
Right.
Which for cuts or something, kind of use pure hog lard and spider web.
Right. Did they have any ways of stopping blood?
That was the way. Mm-hmm. That was the way. That's they will cauterize with that.
Right. Did they ever use turpentine for medicine?
Ooh, I should say, I forgot about that. Yes, they would even put it in clear water, get a clear glass of water, put so many drops in there. They were their own doctor, and they'd prescribe and would take their own. It was in there.
Yeah. What did they use the turpentine for?
They'd use it for kidneys and for abdominal trouble. They'd use it for headaches, toothache. They put it on cotton and have a cavity, jam it back and whatnot. And they would use lye too. They'd put a little of that lye into that cotton until a cavity and stick it back.
Oh, I bet that hurt.
And pack it back up in there. Well, there's an upper one thing that happened when that lye hit that nerve, eat that nerve up, has no more toothache.
Yeah. Did people pull their own teeth? They,
The majority of them, the family, they didn't cut their own hair, all like that.
yeah. How'd they go about pulling teeth?
Well, there's some of them would take a pair of pliers and some would take a fishing line and would pull it.
Did you ever hear about a plant called, maybe its name is yellow root or yellow something, yellow leaf?
Many of that yellow type there, let's see now, the dandelion, it's yellow. They make beer out of that or some kind of drink that they would make out of that. It's in there, and they would drink it for fever. Because during the time when I was a boy, the majority of people that would die, they would die from malaria and typhoid. Because we didn't know any better, we would drink, you say, stagnant water and all this kind of stuff around. We didn't know any better is to do. But as I say, we did as great, as much as we had knowledge of to do. My grandparents were teachers of their day.
Excuse me, I seem to be in a place where bugs keep getting on me that I don't know.
Yeah, change, yes, change. They go right by that screen that's in there.
What do they do for malaria besides drink the dandelion tea?
Take cold towels, cold porters, cold towels, and put on them, and they would pray. And they believe in the divine healing. In other words, that was our only outlet. I've thought about that many nights. I lie in bed and think about a lot of things just like that. And they would take turns on the sick, like he's confined to bed. One will stay the night, and tomorrow night another. Right on. Always will be someone there as if it was a hospital. And some of these hospitals that I've been in, they're doing better at that day than they do in the hospitals of this day. Mm-hmm. As you want to know, that is for service. It's in there, and they would build them bonfire outside. They had plenty of wood. We just burn up wood. We burn up more good lumber and stuff. No, just burn up wood. Just waiting to hear of his needs, what they could do at that time.
Yeah. This was at the house of the sick person or a
At
special
the house,
house?
a house at the sick person.
Right.
That's what they would do.
What kinds of foods would you feed somebody if he was sick?
They would feed. Now that was one type of medicine that they would use too. It was how they would prepare that food that's in there. They would make soups, and they would milks, all different thick stuff. And now some would use moles, a mole tooth. You found more children, I don't see it today, but when I was a kid coming along, I didn't use it. My dad and them, they wouldn't allow such a thing. They'd have sassafras in a rag and a mole tooth.
You mean the tooth from those little animals?
Yes, from the little, and tie it around his neck. Say that would ward off disease. And that thing would be as black as I don't know what all around his neck, But my family, they wouldn't allow nothing like that, They didn't believe in it.
Yeah. You haven't seen anybody who still wears one of
No.
Was it like a little cloth bag with the sassafras
That's right.
and mole tooth in
That's
it?
right. That's right. And says it would keep cold away and whatnot from around.
Yeah.
I looked for it, but so when I came back, I didn't see it. I don't know, hardly ever I talk about things,
Right.
like that. I'm glad they are losing out with that superstitiousness.
Right. Do you
Yes,
recall any other superstitions along those lines? Warding
Yeah.
off disease?
Yes, that I know of that other people would do. They would, you won't even see the houses now. Like they build a house like this, they build a little pigeon window. You notice a little pigeon window up, you'd make you think it's another apartment up there. That's making room for the angel to be in there to keep the devil from coming in down here. I was told that. I was told that they had the average house that was built had this little to do. They did all of that through superstition. And he'd walk along, he'd stump his toe, he'd turn around 2 or 3 times, you know.
Did they say anything when they turned around?
Oh yes, they tell me that they says, God bless me, some kind of something like that. It's in there, huh?
Yeah.
And they would watch a bird or owl. They hear an owl, which owls have flown all around here. And he light in the tree and he coo or whatnot. It had a sign to it.
Right.
You
What
know.
was the sign that?
Well, some of the signs would be deaths. Oh, we're going to have deaths in the community. And I was a boy, and I would listen to all of that stuff, and sure enough, boom, there it is. So-and-so and so, Mr. Jones, he's dead. Mr. So-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so is dead. And so they kind of make you kind of scary, you know,
Yeah.
and they're with it.
Owls then were kind of a sign of death, usually. If you heard an owl hoot.
That's what they said.
Right.
But I don't believe it, you know.
Yeah.
I don't believe it because I've heard of many of them, and, you know.
Were there other animals that brought bad luck or
Yes,
anything?
cows low at night and all. It's giving you an idea that the town was pretty good, but it was pretty rough too in a way. You take Sawmill, Tavern Time, or Quarter like people, you always got you some trouble. But as I say, it was pretty peaceful, but having these factions in, you understand? Pretty good.
So if you heard the cows lowing at night, what did that mean?
They
What
said
did people say it meant?
sickness and death. And even the wind. That's, ooh, so the wind is coming from so and so and so, so there's going to be sickness. And they could tell about the weather. They could tell about the weather before all of this announcements and whatnot was around. We got a little scrapping of it through the paper. I never shall forget, we used to get the Atlanta Morning News. And we moved up to the Atlanta Constitution, you know, as I grew up. The Atlanta Constitution and the Atlanta Journal. We got into that. Always with papers ever since I could remember. I grew up with papers. I reckon you see that's why all these things pile around here. It's just it's a habit. I was taught to read, to just continue on, and no such thing as finish and all that kind of stuff that they use today, which proved to be the truth. There is no such thing as finish. We're still reaching out for new things and whatnot. But anyway, the next thing that they would do, they'd go fishing. That's where I'd have my fun. I'd go, you know, by me being a little boy, I had to go with all the elderly ladies. We with all the long dresses on and going on, and they get to talking a lot of things that they thought was over my head, you know, being a kid, which at that time I didn't have a voice. I didn't have a voice. I just went there and fish. I think about it, and after I got grown, I told them about it.
What kinds of things would they say?
Ooh, they would talk about different families and this, that, and the other. From the boys said, from the president on down, they'd talk about it, the good, the bad, and whatnot. Such as a lady become pregnant. Says, oh, I'm talking over my head now. Says, oh, so you know, Nettie's daughter, she jumped over the broom. It was fun, really. It was fun.
Well, people are still talking about other people. No doubt
Yeah,
about that.
sure. They always have.
She jumped over the broom.
Yes.
I never heard that expression.
Yeah, say she
before.
jumped over the broom. So my grandmother was very close to me, and I always was things I didn't know, I'll ask. I mean, you just have to tell me you're not going to tell me or whatnot. Get back to the house, I asked my grandmother. I called her. I couldn't talk too plain when I was a kid. I had to do a lot of talking to get to where that I could pronounce words. So I couldn't say grandmother, so I called her Dra. And to tell you the whole truth, even today, that's the sweetest name to me, Dra. Well, and so I said, Dra? I said, what this jumping over the broom? What is this? She looked at me, boy, you ain't got no business be knowing what that is. I said, well, not now. I said, well, I'm growing up. I said, the earlier I know it, the better it is. I said, what is that? So she'd tell me. She'd tell me. And then we had pigs and whatnot. And I said, what make that hog so fat over there and whatnot around? And they tried to put me off with some kind of funny stuff. All the rest, but my grandmother. My grandmother would tell me the truth. So there's a many things that make me lay around and watch. I'd be playing around here, but I'd watch to see. All go to fur. I'm there. Then I tell them. I tell them what happened.
Did people ever use a plant called ginseng down here?
Yes. They used a little of it around. They sold it there in the drugstore there, ginseng. And it took it, and it still say, I was looking at an article of that last week, I think it was. It takes so long for it to grow, you understand. And I always had in mind when I was a boy, that field on the other side of this house here. I pictured me planting that whole field down in ginseng to make me some money. I could just picture it, you know. But things pushed up so until, well, I was on a strain the big way economically. I mean, because I wasn't contented of the of things and being a young man, you know. So I just clipped that away and dropped everything and left.
That ginseng, it's a funny plant. The roots are kind of odd shaped, aren't they? You ever seen them?
Yes, I've seen it. So they said that was it. They said that's what it was.
What's that?
They said, you know, that all I had to do was to take their word. I did not know.
Yeah. What did folks use it for?
They use it for teas of, for potency. They use it for potency, and they used another old sticky bra. I dug up one out here the other day, trying to clean his yard up. Was a little berry on it. It generally grows on railroad beds. They use it for potency and whatnot and all that kind of stuff. Ever since I can recall or know, a man been working on potency, you know.
Yeah, it's pretty important to some people.
This is in there. So I think about it when I see it, you know. What they told me, the elderly man couldn't hardly walk, told me when I was a kid. He told me all about it and what it would do and this thing, that thing, and the other.
That's that berry that you...
Yes, it's berry that I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's a rare thing, but it grows on railroad beds.
Does it have stickers on it?
Yes, the berry doesn't, but the bush,
Yeah.
branches and all.
I wonder what that is. Any idea?
Well, he told me, didn't no one know, and he told me, he says, I tell you, boy, so you can be a millionaire with that. He told me that.
Yeah.
What color are the berries?
The berries is yellow. And I ate one. He said, boy, don't you be eating that thing. He was in there, and I ate one just to see what.
Is that the part they used for potency? They'd eat the berries off it?
Eat the berry. Eat the berry and spit the hull and the pulp out. See?
Right.
You swallow the juice.
Huh.
With that
Was
berry.
that, was it a is the berry kind? How big is the berry?
About
would you say?
the size of a grape.
And does it have a hard seed in it, or a whole bunch of seeds?
It has a small seeds like a grape.
Yeah, smooth skin like a grape.
That's right, smooth skin like a grape.
But it's got stickers on it.
Ooh, but that vine is, well, the bush is prickly. Gee whiz.
Well, we were talking about these superstitions. Did you know people who believed in voodoo or witchcraft or
Oh
anything like
yes,
that?
they believed in that too. You see, and that's something that my people they didn't go for. And I'd play with boys and be around with boys and hear them talk about their parents with such things. And I wondered about it. So for instance, during that day and time, we had one society that is still under the cover in a way today, which is, to me, I regret, and I think it's a foolish idea. We had of that day the Ku Klux Klan, the rough way, and the way they would do some, they would, like if he raised a good crop, they would to get him off after he get a good crop. They'd make like ghosts around, you see, pull sheets over their head, and these little things, they were so superstitious they just couldn't stay there, you know.
These were whites that were trying to drive
Whites,
the blacks
whites,
away?
oh yes. They was in there, and they're so, now don't get me wrong, some of the blacks turned the trick. Some of the whites always had a little pet dog, you know, that would follow them. I never shall forget my grandfather told me about an incident that happened when he was a boy years ago. And this, his boss had a little dog would follow him and say, "You mean boss." He said that's what made him run all over this country. He would leave, he'd run away, and all that kind of stuff. So they caught that little dog, and they had these flour sacks that they used to sell flour in a 24-pound sack. They took it and killed a goat and dipped that sack in blood, and cut holes in it, this little dog, to stick his feet out, and then put soot and lard on the top of it there. And this fellow liked to go out fishing, you know. And they know about where he would be, and they stayed in the bush until he came by. And they caught the little dog and put this on it. And tied it up back where he couldn't take it off. I said, "Man, I'm fishing." He looked around and saw his dog. He didn't know his dog. He left his pole and everything, and the little dog was right behind him. That would tickle